allpointstv.com, and we are delighted that you're out there ready to spend another hour with us on Monday. We come together at Monday at 2 o'clock, and we try to stay around to about 3, and we'll be here for the next hour. Glad you're with us, and hope to bring a quality program as always. Yes, that's always our goal. We don't always succeed at it. We have a goal of what we're trying to compete with. We're trying to compete with. We didn't pass all of the other networks like MSNBC. We've already passed that. We're now trying to be on the level of. I guess my favorite network right now. I'm not saying this is the one that's getting all the viewers, but they're getting their share of them, and they're gaining every day more and more viewers, and that's Newsmax, and they are up and coming. And this one television station doesn't get quite as many viewers, but it's coming. And that's that's the station that's called One, and they're coming up also. The viewership is improving, and they deserve a lot of our viewers. Newsmax is doing awfully well, and they are challenging. I think they're going to eventually overcome Fox. The way Fox is going, it's like Fox is going in the direction of MSNBC. But we're here, and we are trying to bring up the rear, and we are going to continue to do our best to bring conservative. I'm a conservative. I don't know if you picked it up. When I was in the classroom at one of the local university here, students would tell me after my class had ended, and they would come by the office and tell me that they could pick up, and I wasn't trying to hide it. They could pick up I was conservative. And when someone would tell me to say it was really interesting to be in your class because I guess I was the only conservative down there. And I that when I I'm a public school teacher first and foremost, and in the latter part of my career, the last maybe 8 or 9 years of my public school career, I went down to the university and was teaching night school. And then when I retired in 2005 from the public school system, I went down there on a full-time basis, and I was able to meet the staff uh, more directly. I was doing night classes, so I didn't really meet a lot of the staff members during the daytime. But when I went down during the daytime, I was surprised to find that uh, there were nothing but liberals down there. And I would have students come by and tell me it was refreshing to be in my class because I guess I'm just trying to go through the names right now as I think about it. Who were the conservatives down there? There were no conservatives down there. I'm trying to think what area would they have been in. They weren't in. I don't want to call any of the areas out, but I don't think there were any. I don't recall any conservatives down there. When we have those seminars and we'd all be together, and I'm sitting there listening to a lot of them making these kinds of statements that were just to them it was very normative to be saying the things we're saying, but for me, I was surprised that some of the comments would be made. I mean, they're telling me, for example, that requiring a driver's license for voting was discriminatory against blacks. And here they are cultivating this idea, this paternalistic nonsense that blacks can't get a driver's license or some other kind of license, some kind of ID, and you really can't do anything in this country today without ID. They were saying that they couldn't get to ask for voting ID was discriminatory against blacks. I'm sitting there as one of the, was I the only, there were two blacks, I think there were two blacks in that one seminar, or about 30 to 40 people, and they were in there saying that, and I'm sitting there thinking about how is that discriminatory against blacks to require them to have ID when everybody should be required to have an ID. We have to know who's voting for the office holders in this country, and particularly now that you have a lot of persons in the country that here illegally, and I don't think anybody can deny that went on for 4 years under Biden, as if we didn't have a problem prior to Biden, but whatever the problem was before he got in there with that auto pen stuff he was doing, it became much worse. And I'm now hearing numbers like what 20 million persons came in here the 4 years when we had this auto pen president. And we don't need to have ID in terms of voting. With all these persons coming in under the radar, and they're letting them, and they're counting them in the census because they want to have the numbers grow to have more members in the House. And it's amazing that they would try to push this idea that that having to identify yourself as a legitimate voter is discriminatory. And when I'm in that room listening to that, I'm down there. I hadn't been down there with the daytime instructors, but I'm sitting in there listening to this kind of paternalistic nonsense. And what is my tenure down there? So what am I supposed to do in that room listening to this nonsense? Well, I know what I did. I objected to it, and I resented the paternalism of the claims that were being made. I don't make a lot of friends in these universities. I noticed, and I've been to all of them. I went to all the major ones in the state, and I wasn't overwhelmed by any of them. But I was amazed at what I kept running into. I thought that there would be a more even keel conversation. You'd have some that would be on one side, maybe the leftist type of these Marxists. I forget. I just was stunned really by the amount of Marxist instruction that you run into down there. And when they would make these claims, I was sitting there trying to figure out, is there anybody in here feeling the way I'm feeling in this room? Because I've been to Michigan State, I've been to U of M, I've been at Wayne State. Yeah, I don't. Did I take any classes at Central? I went to all the major universities here, and so many of them I forget. I guess I started my graduate work at Wayne, and I did that for a year, and that was the first post graduate work the first graduate work that I did was at Wayne State University, and I don't think I got too much of it even there. It was like you go down there and you take the class and you go home and you go back to class and all of that. And I was doing that in the 60s, and I didn't pick up a lot of it from the classes that I had at that time. But as I began to get more and more and go up through the scale of the grad schools and get more into the area in which I am trained, I began to really, in fact, I didn't even hear this in the undergrad school. I couldn't figure out, some of them I could, but some of them they just got in there and taught the class. And whatever the subject was, they would not deviate from that. If you want to talk to them privately in their office, you could have those conversations. But in the classroom, they taught the course content. And one of the classes they required when I went to undergrad school, everybody would take Western civilization. They don't take that anymore. They got that out of the curriculum altogether. They don't have Western Civ as a required course at any universities today. None. And I've been to enough of them both in terms of my training and also just taking extra, seminar classes and things of that sort, and getting the feel of where they were in these universities. Because I've done a lot more studying than just for the degrees. Because I was always curious, wanting to know a lot of things that were not necessarily on target for me to get my degrees. I will tell you this: I have those degrees that they have, but I've gone beyond that, and they just, and I just have to tell you, I'm stunned. I've been stunned. I guess I've been stunned at every level of my training above high school. I was so naive coming out of high school. I thought my idea of college was that college would be up here at this other level, and then when you got to that level, you had to really be doing the job up there, because this was like going to the college level, and that was a big deal to me, because in my neighborhood, nobody had gone. I don't know if anybody had gone to college in that immediate neighborhood that I was in. Nobody came back and told me what it was like, and I was stunned in the undergrad, my first undergrad test. I was stunned that they were in the classroom, and there were some people had their books open. I was in there sitting there. I'm in there shocked. I was so naive. I can't believe it when I look back at it. I couldn't believe I was that naive. I thought that you had to earn your way, but I found I've been baptized a number of ways in these colleges, and that was one of the baptisms I got in my freshman year. I thought that you had to study and you had to go ahead and take the test, and then the test tested what you knew. I didn't know that they were doing the things I saw them doing. And the frats and the sororities, and a lot of that goes on. And they're sharing a lot of things together, and they're coming in as a clique. And you got to overcome that. I go, my eyes are bloodshot, and my eyes are red from having stayed up all night studying. And they got 8 hours of sleep, and they already have the test before the test is given, because sorority brothers, sorority sisters, and frat brothers would have somehow gotten a lot of the questions, and you got to go in there and deal with those that had prior, information, and you got to overcome that, because they're not giving it to you. Because I didn't want to join the frats, and I didn't want to be a part of those cliques. But I've been really stunned in these in this training, and I guess I still am kind of stunned when I go back and look at it, because I still can't believe what I began to what I went through and what I had to overcome on my way to getting what I now see is training above the training of those who are supposed to be my peers. Because a lot of that stuff I just tell you, a lot of this stuff I don't think that they've earned, because I listen to these scholars on television, and I have to tell you that I cannot believe these persons that have these degrees, these higher degrees. I can't believe they went and took the training, because you can't say the things I hear them saying on TV, and they have this training. I know what this training looks like, because I went through it. But when I hear them saying on television, if you have this training, you don't say those things. I'm still stunned by some of the things that I hear. These revered names out here. I always talk about Alan Dershowitz, because he's on TV a lot. But I don't think Dershowitz is trained in this area. I have to say that now. I'm not trying to put him down, but this man not trained in this area. You can't say what this man is saying, and really, I don't know if any of them really seem like they're all lawyers, and they're not really training. They're not really trained in this area. I can say that for sure. But I've been very stunned by what I've been hearing for a long time. Okay, well, I want to pick up where we stopped last week. On the way, though, let me do one other thing here, and that is I brought 2 books to the studio that I just ordered, and I'm on page 100 and what page am I on in this book here? 107 in the book called Myth America. And the major writer of this book, there's two authors of the book. The major writer of this book is Kevin Kruse, Kruse, and he's a major writer. And when I ordered 4 books, and I didn't look at who the authors were, but this other book, the one called Myth America, is the first one. I'm reading that book now. But another book that came along with it, because I ordered 4 at the same time, is this book called, I was interested in it because the title of it is Voter Suppression in U.S. Elections. Voter suppression in U.S. elections. And in this book, they have the writers. The first writer that they have up there in this book is Stacey Abrams. Now, Kevin Kruse, who is a major writer, the 2 writers of the book called Myth America, the other writer is Julian Zelizer, Zelizr. Kevin Kruse is the major writer of that book. But when I saw Kevin Kruse on this on the cover of this book, one of the writers and contributors of this book called Voter Suppression U.S. Elections, then I saw at the top of the top of the list of contributors in this book is Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams, who is the person who's harvesting ballots and votes in Georgia. And they're going to have her on here as one of the persons writing about voter suppression in United States elections. And what I'm getting at here is that here's another thing I have to say here. I could have made a big mistake in not going into reading this book called Myth America, because the bias of this book, the bias of Kevin Kruse, he's a liberal, and this book has a tremendous bias in it, just unbelievable. The kind of things this man is running. But if I had put the book down because of the not so hidden bias, I would miss some of some major information in the book. It's a very good book, but this is a very biased left wing book. But you can't. I have to practice what I preach. You can't toss it out because it has a bias. You have to understand there's a bias there, and then what is the information it has that you can make use of. And that I found that has been my training, quite frankly. I had to actually go through the training and recognize that I was being trained by people that I didn't consider to be very bright. I just don't. I have to tell you that when I was at Michigan State, for example, I was doing what year was that? I was doing a seminar in the summer of Michigan State, and I was actually, I think, teaching that class, teaching that course, but I was just constantly correcting things they were saying in those classrooms, because the things they were saying, you could say that to a lot of people, but you can't say that, and you cannot say that and then point to where that comes from. And I wanted to know, when I'm in a classroom, I want you to document what you tell me, because I'm taking notes here and I'm going to index it in my memory bank, and I'm going to eventually make some use of it, because I'm not in there getting the training so I can put it on the shelf somewhere. I want to make use of it, and I will make some use of it, but I can't index this stuff in my memory bank and then have you giving me false information, I got to make sure that I'll give you the right information, because if not, I got to go out there and do something in addition, because I don't want to be out here falsifying the information. And this was a journey. It still is a journey. So when you talk about Myth America, and then you ought to read some of the first things that Kevin Cruz, Kruse, and Julian Zelizer, Zelizer. I guess he would say his name is Zelizer. And then you go and read where Kevin Cruz is also one of the contributors in the book on voter suppression in United States elections. And they got Stacey Abrams at the top of this list of contributors in this book. And they got her talking about voter suppression when she's one of the ones that was out here ballot harvesting and cheating in the election in 2020 and helping to overturn the result, because I can tell you that we had an autopaying president for 4 years in Joe Biden. And I wrote today on Facebook. People need to read my Facebook posts, because I'm going to tell you right now, anybody writing what I'm writing on Facebook. Nobody's writing what I'm writing on Facebook. And they know I'm writing on Facebook, these scholars do, and they don't come on Facebook to say anything. And today I called all of these politicians out by name that I wanted to name that have been leading this country downward. Cory Booker, Nancy Pelosi, Charles Schumer, Benny Thompson, the only Democrat out of the delegation in Mississippi. He's the only Democrat among the members that they've sent to Congress. He's the only Democrat in that group. The rest of them are Republicans. The rest of them are members of the Republican Party, let's say it that way. And Christy, Noam, you did the right thing. You went before that committee that this guy is on. This is the same guy that co-chaired the January 6th committee, along with Liz Cheney. You remember that committee they had, the January 6th committee, where they had these 9 people on that committee, doing an investigation. There's nothing that committee could do in terms of the investigation that they held. The investigation was incorrect. You can't have an investigation of Donald Trump in the House of Representatives, and you've not brought about any impeachment in that body. What are you trying? What are you doing putting Donald Trump on what amounts to a trial in the House of Representatives, and there's no charge been made against this man through the impeachment process? What is that about? Can you answer that question? You can't even do that. Why not? Because there's a separation of powers. That's why not. Go back and look at how they tried to jam the great George Washington up. And George Washington told them that you could, in fact, he didn't say it in these words, but this is the idea behind it. He said you could actually jam the president of the United States up if you go through the protocols that allow you to do that, and told them that you have to bring about impeachment. They were talking about you did some things behind the scenes that were not publicly acknowledged, and we want to find out what your notes are in terms of your dealing behind the scenes in the Jay Treaty. And Washington told them you could have access to that, but only if you in fact impeach the president of the United States. You cannot get it just by you demanding it of me, because I'm an equal body in the separation of powers. You can't demand that of the president of the United States. What are you, crazy? He didn't say those words. I'm using words I'm putting words in his mouth. What are you, crazy? And yeah, they are crazy, because they don't care anything about the Constitution. But George Washington told them you could get the documents that you're seeking, but you can't get it by demanding it of me. and don't go through the process through which the demand can be made, because you have to first of all impeach, and then you ask for the documents based upon the impeachment, because now you get to ferret out what the evidence is, so you can make the claim because impeachment is just accusation, to make the claim stick, so you can carry it if it needs to be go to the Senate for the hearing based on the claim you made in the House. That's the way the process is supposed to be made. Okay, well anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is that we have got to get back. We just have to get back. We're so far off in this country. This nation is an outlaw nation right now. And we have these outlaws up here running the country, and that's what I'm writing about in my post. They're not going to say anything because they're overmatched. I'm just going to tell you, they're overmatched here. They're not going to say anything. I'm calling the names out. I'm calling Kareem Jeffries out, Charles Schumer out, Nancy Pelosi. She's leaving at the end of the term. She's gone. Thank you for that. And I'm calling names out of these persons who are doing this country in. They have to be called out. Cory Booker from New Jersey. I'm calling him out. This man, Tim Walsh in Minnesota, I'm calling him out too. This man, they're turning their head the other way and allowing this graft. I'm talking about billions of dollars being siphoned off of taxpayers' money, being siphoned off and going into the hands of these people in this country don't even speak English. And then Cory Booker comes and tells us that they're making a tremendous contribution to the country, a great contribution. This is what we can't do without people that don't speak English in this country. And a lot of them don't even speak the language, don't even have enough, what is the word here? Respect. Don't have enough respect for the country to speak the language that is the language of the country that they voluntarily came here, and they came here to do the country in. And people like Cory Booker, once you catch him with their hand in the cookie jar, he comes out and tells us they're making a major contribution. Where? The 80,000 persons that are in Ilhan Omar's district. She's Somali, and she has a Somali group that backs her up, and she gets in there and makes sure the treasury is open to them. They send the money back home of taxpayers' money in that district, and they think this woman has some clout because she is supported by the Somalis in that district. That district is nothing but Somalis. And that guy, Jacob Frey, over there, that is the mayor of Minneapolis, that guy needs to, he needs to get out of there too. Tim Walsh needs to go. Kareem Jeffries, he needs to be gone. Charles Schumer needs to go. These people need to get out. We need to get these enemies out of our government. See, everybody knows we got enemies on the outside. What I've been writing about the last 3 times, I've been writing about, we got enemies on the outside of the country and outside of the government, of course. Everybody knows that. You see that every day. And our military is there to defend against that encroachment. But what we don't know quite as well, and many of us don't know at all, we have enemies inside our country and inside of our government. We have enemies within our government right now. And I'm calling the names out because I can document that I can document one thing very clearly, and that is we made no progress under the leadership of any of these people in Congress. And if that's true, that we made no progress under the leadership of these members of Congress, that raises a question, because you cannot be up there as long as Nancy Pelosi has been in Congress, for example, or Schumer and Cory Booker and the rest of them that are there like as full-time career politicians. You can't be up there that long and not have made a contribution to anything where the country goes forward because of your leadership.
Well, you do have a comment. Oh, Patrick
Oh.
says, "Thank you for the truth, George. Wish you and yours a happy, peaceful holiday season." So
Yeah, I appreciate it too. I need all the help I can get because we are here by ourselves. We're not looking for any applause. I appreciate the comment, of course, but we don't. If I was waiting for, if I had to depend upon the amount of applause that I get, even in my own neighborhood, because I called them out too when I was calling out Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of this state. And when I call her the name that I called her, I won't do it in the air, but the name that I call her is true. And this woman is mentally, this woman is psychotic. This woman is sick. And when I call them out, I'm not picking on them. I would love to have a great report. I would love to say on the air that our leaders are in fact really trying to make a difference in the lives of the American people. I would love to say that because that would be something that I could come out and help them. I'm on that train that with them going down that track, and I would love to be able to come and say that because that's where they should be, and I would love to support them in that effort if that's what they were doing. But they're not doing. But they're not doing that. These people are traitors, and as long as they are betraying this country, I tell you right now, I'm not going to be quiet about it.
by the way, did you hear where Dan Crenshaw, my favorite politician from Texas, wild man, because he has nothing but contempt for anybody who asks him a question.
John.
I guess he's trying to sue, wants to sue podcaster Sean Ryan. And Sean Ryan is also a former SEAL, okay, about what he said about the comments Sean said about him making so much money while being in office. He goes, how does a person, and he wants to sue him. Dan Crenshaw wants to sue him over that. So he wants to suppress the First Amendment because he's who he is. So that shows, that just goes to show you my suspicion of him was so accurate.
Oh, very
he showed nothing but contempt to people ask him a question. He just sneers at the people.
John, that guy has really been disappointing. I thought, given I guess the patch he wears comes from a wound that he had in battle. I assumed that to be the case. And I thought because he had sacrificed some part of his body for the country's well-being, that this person would have gone through that ordeal, and he would definitely be on point to do things that would benefit the country because he had paid for it with part of his own flesh.
Let's extract flesh from us for that.
Yeah, but John, I have been that has really been amazing to me, and I've been very surprised. I was surprised by it. I guess I was snowed by thinking if you've gone through the ringer like he apparently had done, and you served the country at that level, that you would come into the power center now to make a difference because you have seen what it looks like on the outside, and you come in to make a difference. But no, Crenshaw has been a major disappointment. I'll tell you another one that I'm very disappointed in. I'm gonna call their names out because I'm disappointed in them. I'm not gonna be here doing no covering it up. I'm very disappointed in Burgess Owens over there in Utah. I thought this guy, he was up there talking about when they were freshmen going in, they all, like 13 of them had been elected. They were like gonna be the freshman class coming in to make a difference. And Burgess Owens, when he first came in there, was going on TV and he was gonna do these things and those things. I think that's what happens to them. They get in there and they realize that there are 435 members in that body in the House of Representatives, and they are one voice out of 434 other voices, and they found themselves overwhelmed. Maybe I don't think they went in there. I don't think that Burgess Owens, for example, went in there with the idea of getting in there and sitting down in a corner somewhere and being quiet. That's what he's doing. I never suspected that would happen, but they have all surprised me. I'm surprised by our leadership in this country. I'm very surprised by it. I think we have traitors in our government. Down the line.
I'd be surprised if we actually found somebody who was legitimately connected to the people of this country.
John,
I think they're all traitors at every level.
I tell you, that is the thing that I reluctantly had to come to. I kept looking at it, looking to find out where there is a seam that I could go through to get to the other side where the other persons were that were doing something in favor of the United States of America, and I couldn't find them. I kept looking for them, trying to find out what persons are in our government that are actually furthering the interests of the United States of America. Who are those persons? And look at how, and outside of the Trump administration, and look at the fight that they're into. They had Christian Noam go into, you saw it on TV. They went before this committee, and they got in that committee. By the way, Benny Thompson, give me a break with that one. The same man who co-chaired the January 6th committee, which had no constitutional authorization to even meet under those circumstances. You can't be meeting up there as a tribunal trying someone with people like Jamie Raskin on that committee and these other rascals up there on that committee, taking testimony against a president, give me a break, a president of the United States. Do you understand who the president of the United States is? Does anybody understand that in Article 2, the president of the United States is the executive branch of government? He is the executive branch. And you got this puny committee that's a committee of a number of other committees and 9 members out of 435 members. And they're going to interrogate the actions of the president without even going through a process set up by the framers that you can bring that about. And Washington had told them that back there in the 1780s. This is not something new. And they're acting like they never heard of the Constitution of the United States, the separation of powers. I'm just telling you, this stuff is so nauseating and so ridiculous. And I'm not shutting up about it, not anytime soon, because we got to get this stuff under control now, because we're losing the country. And I'm not going to be quiet about it, because I have people coming after me in these, cousins and uncle. I'm the uncle of children coming up and things like that. And I got to be a voice so that they'll have something that they will inherit. Because none of us are gonna be here forever. But if you got to make some stand that says you were here. And I'm not gonna let my relatives come up and then they ask, well, Uncle, what Uncle George? Yeah, what did you do? Well, I did this, this, and this. I didn't just sit here like a knot on a log and remain quiet. I mean, you have the right to, have to read him his Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. I'm not remaining silent. Too much is going on here, and we've got to fight. That's what Trump was trying to say when the man could have been killed. In this country, if we disagree with you, we just shoot you. And this idea that you're going to forgive them, Father, forgive them for they know not what they do. I forgive you if you're a child and you're underage and you don't know a lot that you'll know when you get more mature. And we try you as a child because you think as a child, you speak as a child, and you act as a child. But when you're an adult, I'm not saying you don't know what you're doing. You go on a building and start shooting at people and killing people in cold blood. And I forgive you. I don't forgive you. I don't forgive you. I don't forgive you for what happened to that 31-year-old man in Turning Point, USA, because Charlie Kirk was making a tremendous difference and just opening up the dialogue, just talking to the other side. This man was just talking and willing to reason with those who had a different opinion. Like when I was reading when I'm reading this book, I don't agree with the author, but my goodness, he's making some points. He's making the book is a good book, but you got to read between the lines in this book here now, because this guy gets on my last nerve with this nonsense. I mean, because he acts like the myth America. He acts like it started with Donald Trump. You'd be surprised if the book starts out as if Trump is the problem about these myths of America. And it's just amazing what this man is saying. But there are some nuggets in this book, and I have to say that because that's true. There's some nuggets in this. I would recommend this book be read if you can understand. You got to go through the sniper's nest to get to the information. If you can do that, you will gain from the book. I'm on page 100, and I don't want to misquote the page I'm on, but I'm going to be finished with this book by the end of the week, probably by the middle of the week. I'm on page 107 of the book. And I will finish this book up. How many more pages do I have to go here? The book is 400. No, it's 300 and some odd pages. And that's another 2 days of reading, because I don't spend the whole day obviously sitting in a chair. But you have to sit in a chair. You got in order to read, you got to sit in a chair. You got to be able to sit down somewhere and methodically go through the information and to digest what the author is saying. And he's saying a lot of good things in the book there. I have to give him credit. I give him credit where credit is in fact due. But don't be telling me about you trying to write a book about voter suppression in the United States elections, and then you got Stacey Abrams, the first contributor to that book, when this woman was in fact, you got to be kidding me. This woman was ballot harvesting in Georgia, and that is just simply collecting all these votes out here. Or persons are afraid they scare them away from the poll, where they can then underneath the fear, they can then go in there and plant votes around the place, throw ballots out, and have persons filling out ballots without anybody checking their ID, and send these false ballots in there. She's gonna be writing about voter suppression in the United States election. You got to be kidding me. And I'm calling Stacey Abrams out also. She's not elected office. And the people in Georgia had enough understanding of where she's coming from not to give her an elective office. She's been running forever, but she hadn't been elected anything. And that's the way it should be. We're going to get some of the ones that were elected out of there, because they shouldn't be in office either. We got to get all these traitors out of our government. And they are in our government, by the way. And you'd be surprised who these persons are. Kareem Jeffries, these are not patriots. This guy out of New York. And when you say New York, and they elected out of New York, I don't think you can, you had Stefanik there. She's now running, I think she's running for governor. She was going to run for governor before, but Donald Trump talked her out of it and talked her into staying, because you got to have a number of, he was pulling a lot of people out of the House and putting them in his cabinet. And Speaker Johnson told him, you're taking all the persons that would give me the majority in the House, and that would, you're taking, you robbing Peter to pay Paul, and that would not be workable. And that would be a problem, because if they get a majority in the House, I can tell you right now, the first thing they're going to do is stop the Trump. They want to stop the Trump agenda. That's major. They want to stop Donald Trump, and they want to stop him not because of what this person across the water over there hiding out in Ireland is saying. They want to stop him because they want to stop the America First agenda. That's what this is about. It's not about Donald Trump. They might use Donald Trump as a cover for it. Donald Trump not what they're not against Donald Trump as a person. They're against Donald Trump as a president of the United States is trying to lead this country to become America First, and they're trying to stop that. Go and look what they thought about Donald Trump before he threw his hat in the ring in 2015. They loved the man. What they don't like and what they don't love is they don't love him defending America. These persons are traitors. And I'm going to call them out by name. I'm sorry, that's what's going to happen. I'm not trying to get any friends here. And in my neighborhood, I had to tell them that in part one of the two-part post I finished today. I finished part two today. In part one, I was just telling them, before my neighbors get started, I want to preemptively tell them to shut up. Because, I have pretty good neighbors, but don't come over here thinking you're going to have a conversation to me and I'm going to be over here taking your notes. I took enough notes to last me a lifetime. I'm not taking them. I'm not taking any more notes. I'm giving notes. I took notes all through my grad work, post-grad work, and beyond that, the PhD work, because I've taken work beyond that point. I'm always interested in learning something new, but I'm going to tell you something. I have been shocked, stunned by the bias of these people who are in front of us as our instructors. Those persons supposed to be teaching us who have a bias, and the bias is so profound that the information that they are actually teaching is so overwhelmed by the bias that you have to be in the classroom not only trying to obtain information, but you got to also try to discern where the person is emoting things that have no basis in any evidentiary claim that can be made based on evidence. And I am. I know people don't like to hear this because I'm from Eastern, and you don't like to hear this. You're not supposed to be saying this when you're from Eastern University because they don't choose the Eastern Michigan University people to go into the government. I don't know of anybody I've ever read about that came out of Eastern that's inside of the federal government. I could be wrong. I have to go back and check. I want to go back and check that. I don't think anybody. They like Harvard. They like this place where they just did that shooting over there in Providence, Rhode Island. Over there, that's Brown University. They love that. That's not supposed to happen at Brown, by the way, because Brown is supposed to be that place where it's one of those shining, buildings on the hill, and not supposed to have anything like that going on there because it's one of the elite Ivy League, universities. They get a lot. Brown, not supposed to have it happen at Brown. Not supposed to happen at Harvard. Don't even think about it at Princeton and Columbia. But they're being exposed now. And maybe Eastern is not so far behind as they make it seem. They don't choose anybody from Eastern. But I've been listening to those persons that come out of those other universities. They have this shooting at Brown, and of course that's not all of them, but that could happen there, which tells you a lot about the. These shootings going on these college campuses right now are telling you where these college campuses are based upon the liberal facade of those universities, because they're attracting people in there who can be moved off the needle because they are putting out here certain claims that feather that kind of environment through which this violence can in fact occur. What I was getting at last week when I was talking about this guy that planned those bombs, and he did it both in front of the around the headquarters of the DNC and the RNC, and planned these bombs. They could find out all the ones that went to Washington, whether they had masks on or didn't have masks on. They could find out who they were by doing an exploratory, setting up exploratory committees and things like that, and looking at who they were, looking at train records and airplane records and things like that, and then getting software to look at who's behind those masks. They were able to identify everybody who was in Washington that day. on January the 6th. They were able to identify everybody that was there. And I know they were looking to see if I was there. I knew they wished I was there. And I would probably have gone if I had not had so many other things in my schedule to do. But I was there in sympathy with the person that went there to stand against the election that we all knew had been taken from Donald Trump as he won the second term by 12 million additional votes. You can't get 12 million more votes than you got as a non-incumbent, and as an incumbent, your vote total goes over 12 million because people are more satisfied with you in office than they were when you're out of office. And by you being more popular and they're more satisfied with you after you've been in office for 4 years, and they want to reward you with 12 million additional votes and you lose. Look, folks, I was born last night. I was born at night. I wasn't born last night. And you can't run that by me that you get 12 million more votes as an incumbent. And then the person who got 12 million that beat him after he got 12 million more votes was the under guy, the guy that served under Barack Obama. And what was his support like during his second term? 69.3 million votes in 2008. And then he ran again in 2012. His votes went down by he got 69 some million votes the first term, and went down to 62 million votes during his second term. Went down by, this is the Messiah now, went down by 7 million votes, and his vote total went down, but he ran against Romney. So what was the problem there? Romney ran a bad campaign, and if anybody had run against him, if Trump had run against him, Obama would have lost. But Romney ran against him, and therefore he won the second term. But his vote total went down by 7 million votes. That's understandable because the incumbent has a record now to run on, and now you got to defend that record, and he's never going to be as popular in office as it was out of office. Go look at the number of times when presidents go in with a lot of fanfare, and people are very much elated over the fact that they're running with something that they didn't have before. He's out of the mix, and he's now in the mix, and they want to shout for the country because people are basically in this country patriotic. They don't always act upon the patriotic instincts, but they're not against the country, not deliberately against the country. They do a lot of things that are not in support of the country, but they're not doing it deliberately to hurt the country. There are some that are doing that to hurt the country, but not most American people. Most of them just, I don't want to say this, but most of them just can be led by the nose and just don't get it. But the man you go look at the number of persons that when they ran as an incumbent, what their vote totals were when they ran on the outside, and then when they got inside and ran again. You can even look at Washington in that respect. He got unanimity both times they ran in the electoral college. Each time he got it, it was unanimous each time. But look at Washington's votes, the popular votes. Washington was still he was still the most popular person in the country. But you go and read about go read the work John what's his last name? That name almost escapes me. The one that wrote any of the writers that wrote about Washington, the book that one of the books this writer wrote, outside of writing that tremendous book that I read I think I read it in grad school, which was called the election between Adams and Jefferson, the tumultuous election of 1800. Can't think of the author's name right now. John something was his name, and he writes about that time period. Got a book out called The Ascent of George Washington. I wish I could remember his last name. He's worth remembering. Starts with an F though, but I cannot. That for some reason that name always escapes me. But The Ascent of Washington, which is one of his books. But he wrote a number of books in that area, and he's one of the major voices out there to be read in that area. But I will tell you that it's hard for an incumbent to run as strongly as an incumbent as he ran with an outsider, because as an incumbent, he runs on a record. And you had expectations up here to the ceiling, and then, I mean, the Messiah, that kind of thing with Obama, and who can fulfill that? And that was another disappointment, big disappointment. And that's what happens. But with Trump, the man got 63 million votes in 2016, and didn't get, by the way, didn't get a majority of the votes in that election. He got a majority, got 306, with 306 or 312, 306 electoral votes. You only needed 270, but you got 306 electoral votes. And they made a big deal out of, well, he didn't get a majority of the popular vote, and therefore, look at that, he's not a legitimate president because the majority of the country didn't vote for him. Hey, that's because he didn't campaign in places like California and New York. You know, you don't carry these big states because they're not voting for a Republican. I think that the last time California voted for a Republican was Ronald Reagan. And I don't know when they voted for a Republican in New York. But the point is that when you get a person to get 12 million more votes as an incumbent, and that's what Trump did in 2020, and then he loses the election. I got to tell you something. George W. Moss, that W stands for Washington. George Washington Moss. That Washington, don't forget it. I'm named after two Washingtons. Washington, the president, and Washington, the teacher my mother had at Tuskegee Institute. George Washington Carver was one of her teachers. And I got named, I'm sure I got named because of that, because I'm the only one named Washington in my family. But I'm George Washington Moss, and I will tell you that George Washington Moss is not buying this stuff that you're going to tell me that an incumbent president now, they got 63 million votes in 2016, and then 4 years later, he's more popular then than he was when he was outsider. That's an anomaly that you don't see in politics, where a person is more popular once he gets in office. Why do you think they just had an overthrow in Benin? I was in Benin. Let's see, I was in Benin. This is a country in West Africa. If you know where Nigeria is, you know where Benin is. Benin is next door. And Nigeria is the largest population in Africa. And they just had a coup d'etat in Benin, because the person that got in there and did what the person did before he arrived, and he did the same thing, and they eventually the military rose up against him, threw him out of power. Because once you get into power, you got a track record, and if people not pleased, because not everybody gonna be pleased, first of all. But what you run on as an outsider is that you don't run on a record, so you're not really proven or disproven whether you belong there or not. But once you get in there, then person can see what you did, and they can also see what you didn't do, and they can take exception to what you didn't do. And for some people, you didn't do what they thought you should do, and therefore they want you out of there. And that's what happens to people in power. But Donald Trump this happened. This was an anomaly you don't see. The incumbent president didn't happen to Obama, the Messiah. Obama got 7 million less votes in his re-election bid in 2012 than he did in 2008. And Trump votes went up from 63 million votes in 2016. Didn't get the most popular votes, but the man didn't campaign in the largest states. He just simply conceded that. Didn't do it. He didn't concede that in 2024. Not that he's going to win California, not going to win New York, but he went and ran in those states as well and made an appearance there so as to take away the excuse that he wasn't a president of all of the country because he didn't get the popular vote. He wanted to take that out of their mouth, and that's why he campaigned in those states. We had no chance of winning California, and certainly didn't have a chance of winning New York. And although that's where the man has Trump Tower and so on and so forth, he's been a litmus of business in New York. The man made a tremendous contribution in New York, but he wasn't going to carry the state. The state is too. No, I'm going to say this. The state is too crazy. But he ran because he wanted to take the excuse away that he did not, in fact, have the majority of the popular vote. Well, this time he had the majority of the electoral vote and a majority of the popular vote, and they couldn't take that away from him because he did go through there and make an appearance in California, and of course he went into New York where they were trying to hang him. How many times did they bring him into court in New York and try to tie him down to the courtroom where he couldn't go out there and campaign? And they were out. They wanted him out of there. Look what the judge. Look what James Bozeman, what James Boasberg was doing as one of the judges in that court. This man hasn't ever studied the Constitution. Apparently, hasn't heard of the separation of powers, and does not know that a district judge cannot be ordering a president of the United States around. You understand that? You can't be ordering. Give me a break. You can't be ordering the president around as an inferior court, on the inferior court. You're not even Supreme Court, inferior court. Even Supreme Court can't do it. And they have these inferior judges on these on these benches of the courts, inferior courts, ordering a president of the United States around, and it cannot be done. I'm just telling you, it cannot be done. I was pointing out one time, I guess about 3 weeks ago, I was pointing out something they never pointed out on television, not on Fox, not on any of the networks, is that the word Supreme Court is not capitalized in not one time in the Constitution of the United States. That S is not capitalized. It's mentioned 4 times in Article 3. Supreme Court is mentioned 4 times in Article 3. It's not capitalized. Not one. The word supreme is not capitalized one time in the 3rd article of the Constitution of the United States. Go and read it for yourself. And then ask yourself this question: why is that true? That they didn't write Supreme Court capital S? Because they didn't mean for the Supreme Court to be the last voice in anything. They meant the Supreme Court is supreme in terms of within the structure of the 3rd article of the Constitution. The Supreme Court is over the inferior courts, and it calls them inferior courts in the Constitution of the United States. And they're up there with their chests out. And they're up there with their chests out like they're supposed to be up there ordering a president around. You can't do this, you can't do that. They even had that Boasberg, James Boasberg, who ordered the president to bring people that he had gotten out of the country to bring them back in here to assert his authority. I'll tell you what the president should have done. Well, I can't say he should do this now. Don't get me. I'm just a figure of speech. But what he should have done, he should have slapped him. Now, we're not telling the president to slap anybody. Before you get that going in my neighborhood, and that got me saying that you're not going, that's figuratively speaking. What he should have done was slap these people, telling him that he can't do certain things. That's not the way it operates. Look. We had this man, I was trying to get this point last week. We had this man planting those bombs, but those bombs were planted because this man had been listening to these commentaries. And you don't have to authorize someone by giving them something to say, go do this and go do that. You just continue to feather the environment. There's a book out about that where they talk about power, the wielding of power. I see too many examples of it having happened in history where you authorize it through your energy and so on. And what this man was doing is he thought that he could get away with, I mean, they're not going to investigate this. He's doing what they're telling him to do indirectly. And he was planting these bombs and they couldn't find him. They weren't looking for him. And when Trump got in there, and then you got Pam Bondi in there as the Attorney General. She's a more serious Attorney General than that Merrick Garland was under Biden, because Merrick Garland should be in jail. That's what the evidence is. That's not just my opinion. That's the evidence, is that this man should be in prison. What he did when he was in there as the Attorney General of the United States. They got in there. They didn't do any further investigation. What they did was to, in fact, go in there and look at the evidence that had already been ferreted out by those who were over the government during the time of the auto-paying president. We had an auto-paying president, by the way. We didn't have Biden was not. Biden was the figurative president. We had an auto-paying president in this country. We had a group of people, whoever those persons were, wielding that pen. They were running the country in Biden's name, behind Biden. They pushed him out there in front, and they're running this country through an auto-paying presidency we had at this point in time. And John, you said we have to wrap it up. And they were making sure that they ran this country through the auto-pen and were running it. That's why I wrote today about Biden didn't let all these persons in this country. That auto-pen presidency did that. They did it in Biden's name, but this man didn't know what's going on. And they brought all these people in this country that run this country. And I notice here, Johnson, you and these others that are in the Republican Party, you don't have any interest in finding out who those persons were, because those persons need to go to jail. To allow this country to be invaded like that. And they're now saying 20 to 20-some million people came in this country in the 4 years of the Biden regime. And that cannot be allowed to stand without someone going to jail, someone being tried for it and being convicted for it, and setting an example so it will never happen again. We can't have an auto-paying president. If you can find the persons that did all these things, that figured out who they were in Washington on January the 6th, you can find out you could have found out who that person was that was in fact planting those bombs. And they found him out, by the way, by just looking at the documents they already had under Garland and all the rest of them. They had the information. They probably had it within a week to 2 weeks time of having looked at it, but didn't execute on what information they had. All they did when Trump got in there, Bongini, they just went and acted on what they already had in the files. That's where they found who this person was. We have got to get back, folks, to the founders of this country. Without that, there's no salvation. And I'm going to get back next week with another edition of this program, because we're not going anywhere. Until next week, we want you to follow your dream. If you don't follow your dream, you'll never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.